Chapter 41. Lose the hair or lose your head. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What superhero? You have no superpower. Antonio yelled. Neither does Batman. Ben replied. Batman's superpower is money. You're more like villains. You're killing my business. Get away. The hot dog vendor at the side shouted. Their yelling cleared out all the people nearby. Ben and Antonio returned to walking on the city street, happy to get away from the smoky smell of the hot dog cart. Antonio said, Man, the purpose of the baby in a burning building line was to get that chick's attention. There's no way she wouldn't respond just to know about that, but the point is now you've reframed it from her flaking on you to you flaking on her. You've regained the power. Ben squeezed his fist and stared at it. He felt the power coursing through his veins. Keep in mind she didn't know you were waiting in the restaurant for her for 2 hours. So why not make it you were the one who flaked? Even though that ain't true, you already won. If she responds to you with, oh no, actually I forgot, it'll sound like she's being defensive and lying in desperation. Chicks are very aware of how things sound. So she wouldn't say that. Your checkers move trapped her, feel me? You always gotta keep control of the perception like that. Ben made energetic nods over and over like a 5-year-old listening to his hero. Remember this. You're like a marketing spin doctor. Everything needs to end with you in control, having the upper hand. That means you leave first, you hang up first, and if you think the chick's gonna flake, you flake first. Keep yourself in the position of power. If not, the chick will, since it's a part of her natural psychology. There's no avoiding this game, so you might as well win it. Got it. Got it. So what now? Set up another date. Antonio shook his head. Watch this. He took Ben's phone and sent another text. Can't. Busy now. Talk later. He asked Ben, you see what I did there? Ruined my love life. Ben frowned. Wasn't Katie just offering to reschedule? Why not agree? That's chump bait. Often when you jump on the first invite like that, chicks lose interest. How about now? Now you're the busy one. You say when you can meet. Chicks are flaky, right? But it ain't 'cause they're busy. Most of the time, chicks aren't doing sh*t. They're just busy to the 95% of dudes they flake on. The loud siren of a passing police car interrupted Antonio's words. For those top 5% of guys, chicks will make themselves available as long as they think you're busier than them. So with this chick, put her on ice for a few days. You want to reinforce you're busy saving babies and all that. Later, she'll be much more receptive. Ben stared at his cousin with curiosity. When they approached girls in person, Antonio didn't seem much more advanced than him, but in text messaging, he was a virtuoso. Alright, thanks man. No prob. Okay, forget about all that. We've got bigger weeds to whack. Here's why I brought you out here. Antonio pointed to a shop to their side. A barber shop? Ben asked. Antonio nodded and began stretching his legs. Why? Because he had foresight. That's when Ben sprinted away. 'Cause, it's just a haircut. Antonio yelled as he hugged Ben. Why do I need one? Ben shouted. You look like Colin Kaepernick if he dropped NFL to play professional Madden. He's rich. Esports pros don't make sh*t. A few minutes later, a frowning Ben was in a barbershop chair with Antonio sitting down and flipping through magazines nearby. It's not that Ben loved his hairstyle, but that he hated getting haircuts. He'd watched a mafia movie once of a mobster getting his throat slit by a barber, and since then, he didn't trust a stranger to come near his head with sharp objects. His father always cut his hair for him, and Ben had to vet that guy for over a decade. The metallic buzz of the clippers. The cold metal of scissors on his skin. Moist spray from the barber treating him as a plant. All these things made Ben uncomfortable. Still, he knew a haircut might improve his looks, and in 7 days, the system would give him a bowl-shaped cut at his neck anyway, relieving him of the burden of having a head. Antonio glanced upwards when the barber came out. "Carlos, see what you can do for him." The old barber with a goatee examined Ben from all angles, before turning to Antonio. "I'm sorry. There's not much I can do for him. Am I here for a haircut or to cure stage 4 cancer?" Ben's face fell. The barber said, "Nino, you look like Bob Ross, your hair is curlier than Bigfoot's pubes." Ben responded. "If I'm Bob Ross, are you Jeff Ross? What's with the impromptu roast?" If this haircut didn't have a chance to improve his looks, Ben would have stormed out already. Chapter 42. The Positives of Obliteration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As if saying, "Don't shoot," the barber lifted his hands in the air proclaiming innocence. "Son, I can cut it. I'm just saying, all I can do is make it shorter or shave it off. Cutting only the sides short or something like that I don't see that workin' for you. As for straightening it," he shook his head, "you'd have to keep doing it with chemicals all the time. It'll be like trying to hide a boner, that thing's gonna pop right back up." He demonstrated by firing a high uppercut like Ryu's Shoryuken. Ben had enough. "Fine. Just trim it and clean it up." This haircut wasn't shortening Ben's hair as much as his confidence. He already knew his hair was tough to control. In any case, he wasn't willing to be a monk baldy, and he didn't mind his curly mane. "I can use an unusual hairstyle to peak.o.c.k2 right." Over the next 15 minutes, the barber shortened Ben's hair and made it look cleaner. Now, Ben looked more like a young Justin Timberlake than Bob Ross. Antonio gave a thumbs up in the mirror. "Not bad, cuz." Ben looked at his reflection and touched his head. He smiled because it came out pretty well. They left the barbershop and walked along the street. "Aight. Next up, let's get you some new threads," Antonio said. Ben's face remained stoic. Hair is one thing, but taking fashion advice from this guy. He suggested I wear a propeller hat the other day. Ben shivered at the thought. Antonio stopped and grinned. He pointed to a shop. "That's the spot that's gonna step your game up." B-Novcom. The shop sign read, Wacky Willie's T-Shirt Emporium. Ben looked at Antonio, whose eyes glistened like a Viking warrior entering Valhalla. Then Ben glanced at the T-shirt Antonio wore today. It said, "I shaved my balls for this." Ben narrowed his eyes. Is that even a joke? More of a comment really. He exhaled with exhaustion. Then, he noticed that next door there was a popular men's clothing store he'd seen commercials for. A few of the more popular guys at his university also wore this brand. "No, let's go there instead." Antonio shook his head. This kid's starting point was too low. He can't appreciate authentic style yet. With the advice of a sales clerk, and ignoring every word out of Antonio's mouth, Ben bought some decent clothes at last. They weren't anything special. All came from the bargain rack because that's all he could afford, but they were much higher quality than almost everything he owned. When checking out, Ben frowned because the purchase ate up a big part of his credit card balance. But he soon relaxed when he realized something. Poor credit didn't follow after death. I found a loophole. Credit card agencies hated him. Ben didn't care, he strutted his stuff at the register. Too bad for them. It was the limitation of a system that only tracked the body. Ben looked at the helmeted guy on his American Express card. "Lawyamad. Don't be a B***tch. Ben smirked. "You can't blame me. If you're salty, then invent the social security number." He headed for imminent death, but Ben discovered the positive point of obliteration. What was looking at the bright side? This was F***King looking at the bright side. If nothing else, Ben was now an optimist. Free money. He'd need a job if he survived, but Ben reveled in being a student maxing out his credit cards. What was destroying his credit? This was F*King destroying his credit. If nothing else, a man on death row was a spendthrift. Ben's last meal. 8 years later, a hero with fresh credit would be reborn. While walking out wearing one of the outfits, Ben froze in the middle of the sidewalk when he received a system alert. He ignored the complaints of the passing pedestrians and his eyes became bright. He even stopped breathing. Is that what I think it is? He opened his stats. Looks. 6. Above average looks. You might turn a head or two. A retirement home, snort. Maybe I like mature women, so I'll take that as a compliment. Try harder if you want to take the wind out of these sails. Despite putting on a brave front, it still hurt him a little. To Ben, the system was like an Asian tiger parent, who was also military, who was also the leader of an aristocratic family. A small part of him wanted to scream, "Nothing's ever good enough for you. All I've ever wanted was your acceptance." However, Ben shook it off. He agreed with the rest of society in the best way to deal with psychological issues. Bury them deep down until they explode. It wasn't Mental Health Awareness Month, so who had time to deal with that when they could glorify material gains? Ben lived in the now. So he celebrated his new look stat. 6, not long ago, he was a 2. Rounded up. Even his parents would do a double take if they saw him now. What a change. Ben emerged from his cocoon and became a butterfly. A slightly above average looking butterfly. It was a little at a time, but he was evolving into a different person. Tonight that I'm going to flutter my wings. Ben gazed up at the sky for a long while, then, while staring, he realized something. No homo. Chapter 43. Invincible opener. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Making vast changes to one's looks was very challenging. Just ask Caitlyn Jenner. In fact, compared to all the other stats, looks was the hardest to increase. Without magical interference or extensive surgery, you could say it had a hard cap. Charisma, seduction skills, knowledge, or any of the others could increase with time and effort, but looks. Even going to the gym only improved your body. There was still height, face, and other features that mattered. Looks was the most important stat for dating, but it was also the most difficult to improve. That would remain the case until someone invented dumbbells for the face. Yet, Ben found a way to increase his looks, even without a treadmill for his forehead. In truth, Ben hadn't picked some low-hanging fruits. Choosing a suitable haircut and stylish clothes were things most people achieved by his age. He failed to do so until now for 2 reasons. First, he discriminated against barbers. Second, he was busy 360 no-scoping noobs. It was only because of the threat of death, but the boy turned into a man. Everyone has a time where they need to put down childish things, where an Xbox turns into SE Xbox. For Ben, that time was now. Well, not now, but soon. He still stood in the middle of the sidewalk, so excited he was swinging his shopping bags around like a lunatic. In Ben's senses, he filtered the cursing of passing pedestrians as praise and applause. He was soaring. A 6 in looks wasn't anything special, but he crossed the line into the top half of the population. With slow steady steps, he was advancing. Ben believed that as long as a person kept moving forward, and didn't quit, one day they'd hit a tipping point, and everything would change. After one last swing where he almost clotheslined a bike messenger, Ben took a deep breath and calmed down. The boost in looks helped, but he still had a daunting task ahead of him. He stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon, and unless he wanted to die, before 7 days expired, he'd have to get a running start. And F*** that canyon. Ben discovered another interesting point. It seems some real-world items have hidden stats. I guess that makes sense. If someone drove a Lamborghini, it would raise their social status without a doubt. Though many of the system items are special because they have unnatural bonuses or magical properties. Yo, you done? Antonio put down his camera once the show was over. What were you doing? Ben asked. Oh, when you went full Zoolander, I started filming. You know. 4 memories. Ben didn't think much of it. Whatever. I'll drop this off and then we'll roll to the bars. Lit. Same spot. Nah, let's go somewhere new. There were things about the system Ben wanted to confirm and he'd need to go to a new bar for that. The two returned to Ben's dorm, where he went upstairs to drop off his bags, while Antonio waited in the lobby. It wasn't until much later that Ben learned a certain video found its way to social media. The title was Shlomo's Shopping Spree. It showed a young man leaving a store into a crowded street then swinging his bags around like a chicken on bath salts. It was minutes long. Ben said he would flutter his wings and he accomplished his goal. That would have been the end, except the store brand picked it up and forwarded it on all its social media, with the slogan, Bird Mode. Clothes that fit so well, they'll make you aerodynamic. Hashtag Bird Mode reached trending. A Bird Mode challenge hit Instagram and TikTok. That's how a new brand icon was born. Viewers made immediate comparisons to historical legends, Jared from Subway, Bill Cosby from Jell-O. Ben was among the greats. He was reaching the edge of becoming an E.list celebrity and no one knew his real name. Dirty Bourbon. That was the name of the bar Ben and Antonio were online for now. Ben gazed at the ground during the entire wait, his mind spinning with conjectures. ID, the bouncer asked, snapping Ben back into reality. Ben handed him the trusty Benny Bvito ID. It worked without fail, and Ben stepped inside to verify his hypothesis. Uns asterisk the music washed over him like a Jersey Jaeger bomb. But he ignored it because he was waiting for something. He looked around. He stepped further inside. Nothing. What's wrong with you? Antonio asked. Ben blinked and shook his head. Nothing. Let's go to the bar. But there was something wrong. Why didn't I get a dungeon alert? Ben had guessed that when he entered a bar for the first time last night, it unlocked a dungeon system that would work at other bars too. Now he knew that wasn't the case. So there is something special about Domina. What is it? Pondering with intensity, he leaned into the bar, staring into the wall with a burning glare. The bartender looked at him, following Ben's gaze to the hard liquor shelves. Another raging alcoholic. He shook his head. After a minute, Ben sighed. I don't know. It must be the SM theme, or another troll from the system's dungeon. Forget it. Out of nowhere, a beer bottle slid in front of Ben's face. He turned to the direction it came from to see Antonio sipping a beer, and then tipping it to him. Ben was silent for a few moments. I've only tried wine on a few occasions during holidays with family. Antonio smiled. Alcohol is a social lubricant. Haven't you ever heard that? 1 or 2 drinks is good to loosen up. Though, you gotta be careful. Drown in it and the downside becomes much worse than the upside. Tell me if you ain't feelin' well. Don't drink too much. Got it. Ben nodded, picked up the beer, had a sip, and raising his eyebrows. It was an interesting taste. He smiled back at Antonio and they clinked bottles for a cheers. I won't. He drank too much. Antonio shook his head. They were outside in the street now. Ben was pointing and yelling his new drunken openers at random women. I'm gonna F *CKU that I'm gonna F *CKU that I'm gonna F *CKU, nah you good and I'm definitely gonna F *CKU. He only drank 2 beers. Antonio didn't understand how he could be such a lightweight. They were outside now because security kicked Ben out after an incident. There was a woman at the bar. If Antonio had to rate her, he'd give her about a 4. After 1 beer, Ben approached her and said, I've had quite a bit to drink, and you're starting to look pretty damn good. It didn't work. After 2 beers, Ben came up with what he deemed an invincible opener. He approached her again. On this occasion, he put his hand right into her drink glass, scooped out everything inside, and smashed it on the ground. "What are you doing?" she yelled. "Breaking the ice." He slurred, "Name's Ben, wanna go halves on a bastard." Security didn't get the joke either, so now they were outside. "Oh, sh*t. What's he doing now?" Antonio watched as the bouncer out front shouted at Ben to leave. Ben walked up to him with a wronged expression as if he was going to plead his case. As Antonio prepared to pull him away, his eyes went wide. Did he just not tap the bouncer, and now Ben's runnin' over here and now the bouncer's runnin' over here. "Fly, you fool!" Ben screamed. Chapter 44. Crackheads want to eat swan meat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 6 days to live. "Well, last night was a wash," Ben said to Antonio. They were eating dinner at a nearby restaurant. "Sorry about that." Antonio replied, "It's all good, cuz we got away from that bouncer. It'd be best if we stayed away from that bar though. Also, maybe you shouldn't drink from now on. You went full Palpatine." His eyes showed a tinge of fear. Ben nodded. "Yeah, I can tell drinking isn't my thing. Only 2 beers Hasselhoff me, only, everyone else in those bars is drinking. Isn't it weird to be the only person without a drink?" Antonio stroked his chin. "You can buy a ginger ale or soda and carry it around in a glass. That way you'll fit in." "Thought it's a good idea. Kind of weird though." Antonio shrugged. "Fake it till you make it." Ben pinched his eyebrows. "What am I making? An alcoholic?" After the bar debacle last night, Ben was in no shape for any more openers, so Antonio helped him get back to his dorm without someone arresting him. He woke up with a hangover and spent most of the day nursing himself back to health, only getting a gym workout in. He couldn't afford to rest though, so they planned to go out again tonight. Antonio said, "You know, we don't have to go out every night." It's true it wasn't a healthy lifestyle and torched Ben's sleep schedule, but he'd have plenty of time to dirt nap next week. Also, all he needed to do tomorrow was a date with Miyuki at nighttime. Ben stared hard into Antonio's eyes and his voice became grave. "I do that. I've got to get a nut off. You hear me? If I don't glue gun a woman this week, I'll die." By reflex, Antonio leaned back and frowned. "I ain't no expert in thirstology, but this guy's vampin' out." After dinner, the two of them went back to the nightlife area they'd frequented these last few days. The name of this neighborhood was the West Village and it was always busy at night. As they approached Domina, Ben was eager to verify if there would be any fresh changes when he entered this bar dungeon, but he didn't have the opportunity. "It's closed." Ben knitted his eyebrows. Antonio said, "New York may be the city that never sleeps, but it sure takes a lot of siestas. Even though there's something happening every night, that's not the case for every place. Most venues are only packed a couple of nights per week, and those are the popular ones. It's not cheap keeping a spot open and paying staff." Ben recalled that Leah, the promoter, mentioned Domina was only good a few nights. It disappointed him, but the two continued walking. There was no shortage of venues here. Woo! Down the block, a woman's party howl caught Ben's attention. She was dancing with a few girlfriends in the street outside a bar. Even from this distance, Ben and Antonio could see they wore very little clothing and were attractive. A second later, the women entered the bar next to them. Ben and Antonio looked at each other and muttered, the legendary S.L.U.T.S., then they broke into sprints. When they reached the bar, they almost tripped over themselves. Catching their balance, they saw there was no line because it was still early, so they approached the bouncer. The bouncer watched two panting junkies with bloodshot eyes hobbling towards him in a menacing fashion. Stay back, crackheads. Ben had to leverage his charisma in a 5-minute conversation with the bouncer to convince him they weren't junkies. Whether or not that was true was debatable. But they managed to gain entrance into the venue. 80s music and sparse laughter floated into their ears. They looked around and saw the place wasn't full yet. At the edge of the bar, Antonio spotted the group of women from outside earlier and pointed them out to Ben. The women were ordering drinks. Now that they were closer, Ben could see these women were even more attractive than he expected. 8s or 9s at least. As Ben prepared to open them, Antonio grabbed his arm to stop him. Wait. If you go now, you'll get rejected, Antonio warned. What do you mean? Those girls are too hot, we need a more delicate approach. Ben blinked. Such as? Antonio smirked. I'll show you. They grabbed a place at the bar and ordered ginger. Alesh. 'Cause, while it's a good habit to not hesitate to open, it can also be short-sighted. Once you get rejected once, trying to reopen the same chick will be much harder. So with quality targets, consider being a bit more patient. You shouldn't auto-open 9s, bro. Let me show you the right move here. Ben was eager to learn these advanced tactics. Antonio winked at him before opening 2 other girls sitting at a table. He stuck into the set and soon called Ben over to join him. Ben watched and analyzed. So his advanced tactic is to settle for fatties. Chapter 45. NASA's Lunar SEX mission. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. This is how the big boys do it. When the 2 girls they were with went to the bathroom, Antonio grinned and lifted his eyebrows multiple times like his face was doing pull-ups. The big boys go for the big girls. Ben wasn't impressed. Antonio chuckled. No bro, these 2 chicks now aren't targets, they're pivots. Pivots. Yeah, cuz, consider this. What's more attractive, 2 guys by themselves or 2 guys with chicks? Ben wasn't sure why, but he knew the answer by instinct. With chicks. Antonio nodded. And why is that? 2 reasons. 'Cause having game itself is attractive due to hinting at experience, and chicks want men they can't have. Like cats chasing string. As they leaned on the bar, Ben whirled the ice around in his drink while contemplating this. Antonio continued. You know, when a dude has a girlfriend, he gets a lot more attention from other chicks. It's for the same reason. Being desired sends out a signal to nearby chicks that you've got something desirable. It's a way to raise your status in your current spot. Ben nodded. Makes sense, but why these 2 chicks? Antonio laughed. Because they're easy peasy lemon squeezy, baby. We're even better looking than these chicks. So they won't reject us. You've gotta start with a safe and firm foundation, 'cause this is only the first step. First step. Yeah bro, using pivots is like climbing a mountain. You use one foothold to get to the next higher one. Ben's eyes flashed in understanding. So if I'm understanding this right, you're going to heartlessly step on these women's faces. Kick off their heads, and leap higher to other women. Antonio raised one heroic finger in the air. Yes. Ben sighed. He rubbed his head while he gauged how he felt about all this for a few seconds. He turned to Antonio. Teach me your kicking technique. Antonio watched this eager young man. He grabbed Ben's shoulders with a firm grip to reassure him. Someone with your potential will learn the black leg style in no time. When the girls returned, Antonio pointed to a better-looking 2 set sitting on a sofa. While Ben continued speaking to the current 2, Antonio left to open the other 2 women. A few minutes later, Antonio came over and pulled Ben away. Sorry girls, we've gotta go cause life is short, bye. Ben also said goodbye. Diable jam. Venison shudo. That's the East Blues flavor of love. Bye. As Ben walked away, the 2 girls squinted at each other. They had overestimated the power of their V.G.I.N. A devil fruit. In the end, it was only a paramecia type. Meanwhile, Ben and Antonio chatted up the new women who were better looking than the previous two. As the night continued on, the bar filled up. From time to time, Ben and Antonio Ninja leaped off the heads of their current set to a better one. As they walked around, they also said hello to old sets to keep those relationships alive in case their foothold broke. If that happened, when they fell, they would grab the feet of a lower set. Then they could climb up to once again stand on the shoulders of giants. This was the process by which all the historical greats of humanity made leaps forward, advancing civilization for the benefit of all mankind. The whole time, Antonio kept an eye on the set of drunk beauties at the bar who were getting drunker as the hours passed. He never lost sight of the mountaintop. Ben now knew Antonio was right about one thing. Over the course of the night, many men opened the drinking beauties but were all rejected. If Ben tried earlier, they would have shot him down for certain. As Ben and Antonio were taking a break to get new ginger. Alesh, Ben expressed a doubt. I don't get it. We've used a third of the women in the bar as human launchpads. But instead of ruining our reputation, it seems like a lot more chicks than usual are checking our flex. What's up with that? Antonio smiled. To you, it looks like we've been Colombian bullfrog gin these chicks, but you've gotta remember, a pivot has a pivot's pride. To them, they've been a small but integral part of the journey to get this NASA rocket ship to the moon. Ben imagined a sea of stars. Antonio elaborated. Every NASA engineer is a minor cog in the SEX machine. But the ship won't soar without them. When you and I step on the moon, there'll be a mighty pride in every one of their little hearts. Ben felt the weight of the mission on his back. He looked around at all the women who contributed to this endeavor. It gave him strength. He visualized them all behind him, pushing him forward with their spirits. Ben was no longer only doing it for himself, he was doing it for the others. For the greater good. He would get laid for all of them. He felt the strength born from the desire to protect. Back on Earth, Antonio reviewed the mission plan. In truth, these pivots are happy when we're around. We're providing them free social entertainment. That's why they welcome us when we talk to them again. I mean, why wouldn't these chicks want to talk to popular guys? Since when are we popular? Ben asked. Since they've seen us socializing with so many people. Remember, to each of these chicks, they don't know that we met everyone tonight. Few people approach so many strangers, so they must believe we already knew many of these people. In other words, they think we're popular, which is a large part of social status, a valuable trait to chicks. Like how you can build attraction with seduction skills, you can build social status with pivoting. Ben nodded many times. He learned an important concept today. It's not only chicks either. You can also pivot off groups of high-status dudes. Antonio waved his arm in slow motion across the horizon. The realm of space is infinite. Let's go to the moon. Ben was all in with the metaphor. Speaking of that, it's about time we stopped porking the pooch and ignited our boner rockets. Antonio made an upward nod towards the set of hotties. Ben looked over. The beauties were laughing and dancing in a sloppy manner with a dozen empty glasses in front of them. One thing was now certain, that they were drunk. They've gone full Hemingway. That I'm going in, Antonio declared. All of Earth was watching live. Would the landing be a success? Or would these heroes burn up in a tragic fireball? Ben watched Antonio's entry with hopeful eyes. That's one small step for a man. One giant leap for man-whores. Chapter 46. Cultivation World of Skanks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He stuck the landing. Ben watched as Antonio eased into the set. The women were now joking and chatting with him. Or rather, slurring. The legendary S.L.U.T.S. drank numerous alchemy potions. They broke through to the next realm. These were now mythical drunks.l.u.ts. A few minutes later, Ben was summoned into this cultivation world of skanks. "Cuz, over here." Antonio waved him over. "Oh, who's this?" A CXY blonde with shoulder-length hair asked when Ben arrived. "This is my cousin, the coolest guy," Antonio answered. Then he proceeded to talk Ben up a bit. This was their standard procedure. When the wingman entered, the opening guy complimented him to build his status. Ben found it a little hard to focus because he was looking at something unusual on the blonde's system data. Target's current attraction level. Curious, +2 drunk bonus. There were two interesting things there. First, the +2 drunk bonus was a testimony to what Beluga and his cousin told him before about the effect of drunkenness on women. Second, if you took the +2 away, he would be a level below where he started in usual situations, disinclined instead of indifferent. Ben guessed this was because this girl was much more attractive than him. He licked his lips as he glanced at her black leather pants and tight top that exposed her outrageous body. Besides those two issues, there was something even more incredible about her. Target's current comfort level. Invalid, drunk status. Comfort was invalid. Drunk status. Yes. Ben thought. He wouldn't even need comfort to wax this monkey. Okay. I need to focus. Ben stepped up to have his cultivation talent tested. He jumped into conversation with these warm wizards. 10 minutes later, things couldn't have been going better. Of the three women, one was staying busy chatting to some other random guy at the bar, one was making out with Antonio, and the other was leaning hard into Ben. Target's current attraction level. Interested, +2 drunk bonus. Ben gulped. Holy sh*T. This is moving faster than I expected. And she's only at interested level. Daddy might soar into the heavens tonight. Antonio leaned over and whispered into Ben's ear, "Bro, I think these chicks are ready to lay down some towels. We should make moves." Ben knew he was right, but he couldn't concentrate because all the blood from his brain was flowing to his nether regions. The blonde posted her leg against Ben's crotch. "Oh, looks like you got something fun there." Ben's body and mind burned up. "Don't f***ck this up." The blonde leaned into his ear and whispered, "Hey, that you want to come to the bathroom with me?" On instinct, he almost shouted out, "f***ck yeah." Somehow though, he kept his cool and only nodded. As Ben thought about going in for a kiss, the blonde leaned back and gave him a suggestive smile. She kept her hands on his chest as she swayed her insane body side to side like a serpent, holding eye contact with him as she moved down, lower and lower. When she reached so low that she was squatting, she stayed there, bouncing up and down on her high heels while biting her lip, no longer staring at Ben's eyes, but lower at his little brother. Her hands had moved down too, now touching him there. Holy moly. She's trying to tag in the entire family. Ben didn't know how much more he could take. Then, she stayed down there, swaying her head and licking her lips as she stared into Ben's eyes. Ben tried his best to keep cool and not look too eager or do anything stupid. In his head though, he was freaking out. All kinds of thoughts ran through his fevered brain. Should I whip it out? In his mind, a guardian angel with his face and wearing white robes came out on his shoulder and advised him. "No, idiot. This is the middle of a bar. Do you want to get arrested?" Then a devil with his face came out on the opposite shoulder and gave him a second opinion. "Do it **SSY. Hurry, it's not going to whip itself out." The angel made a new argument. "Don't listen to that fool. He's the one who told you to listen to Nickelback back then. You remember that." The devil gave his counter-argument. F***ck. You silk. Wearing double kawaii mother ***. No, F***ck. The angel swore back. The devil spread an evil grin. Hey. Guess what I did last night, he said to the angel. The angel shook his head. No, no, no. Don't you bring my mother into this, you bastard. The devil explained, that I watched Shameless on Netflix. The angel relaxed. Oh, that's a good show actually. If asterisk ked your mother in between episodes. Netflix and chill. No, the angel screamed. Then the two somehow summoned a fighting ring in Ben's mind and started a wrestling match. Two more devils came out and it became a 3-on-1 beatdown on the angel. Ben shook his head, freeing himself of the absurd image and trying to refocus on his present dilemma. Unfortunately, his opportunity for public exposure already passed him by like a shooting star. The blonde beauty was now back up on her feet. She turned around with her back facing Ben. Then she pressed her tight leather pants on him. Hard. She ground her thick butt against him. As she rubbed up and down and side to side on his little brother, Ben felt friction that could start a forest fire. She almost forced him to tap out before their battle even started. She looked over her shoulder, giving Ben sensual eye contact and a wild smirk. As she was about to grab Ben's hand and pull him to the bathroom, a powerful voice caught her attention, forcing her to look up. Hey, babe. Ditch this loser and I'll show you how a real man will treat you. A huge hulk of a man towered over them with a C.O.C.KY smirk plastered on his face. Chapter 47. Boner Justice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ben snorted. Too late, dude. I don't know her name, but this woman's going to be my wife. She leaned off Ben like he was a piece of random furniture. There were stars in her eyes as they traced the Hulk's chiseled muscles and facial features. She moved towards him. Ben. Who's that? Guy at the bar. There are lots of guys there. You'd have to be more specific. Ben's heart fell almost as fast as his boner. He discovered the misfortune of running into a sex golden child who coveted beauties. The man grabbed the blonde's hand and she didn't resist. In fact, she grinned. Then he glanced at Ben and sneered, before pulling the blonde with him to sit on a sofa. Ben gazed at the man talking with his sexy ex-fiancée. He couldn't help reflect on what he lost. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Us in a bathroom stall, firing off a load onto her shoulder. I watched her eyes glitter in the dark as I put it in her bottom gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Then Ben realized something. Isn't that Beto? He's Leah's boyfriend. It was the same huge guy who threatened Ben at Domina, who was dating that sexy promoter Leah. Doesn't he already have a beautiful girlfriend? Why does he need to steal my women too? Ben felt a fire building in his chest. So he's cheating with random girls, which isn't my business, but he's even stepping on my head to do it. Ben gnashed his teeth. At this time, the man told the blonde to call her friends over so they could join his friends. She didn't hesitate to do so. A minute later, Antonio's mouth hung open. He was bewildered, because out of nowhere, his girl left and was now talking to another man. He walked over to Ben. What the hell happened? Ben snarled. Hulk hands over there just killed. Stole us. Antonio glared at the men. He was also angry, but when he saw the size of those guys, he could only sigh. We got alpha dog. It is what it is. Let's just open another set. Ben shook his head. No. I must get boner justice. Antonio put his hand on Ben's shoulder. Don't be stupid. Those dudes eat steroids in cereal bowls. I'm pissed too, but there'll be more chicks in the future. Let it go. Ben met Antonio's eyes. In them, Antonio saw the fury of a village burned down, a family slaughtered. Even the dogs and chickens weren't spared. Ben narrowed his eyes. I can't let it go. She was the one. The only one. Who would let me pork her in a bathroom here. He started rev-engineering a plan. Leah's boyfriend was grinding with the blonde when he caught sight of something out of the corner of his eye. Ben was walking by looking at his ass. "Are you trying to grab my ass, homo?" Ben went wide-eyed. "No, I was just looking at the brand of those jeans. I really like them and want to buy a pair." The big guy snorted and turned away from him. Ben exhaled in relief and walked back to the bar. He felt the black perfume bottle in his pocket, or rather the lack of one. It was gone. When Ben was near the guy, he used a consumable he'd gotten from the system several nights ago. Bad luck perfume, consumable, rare, X1. Spray this on one person to give them very bad luck for 2 minutes. He didn't know what would happen, but using it was his best option right now. If it didn't work, then he'd have to go to the backup plan and trick him into eating his own family. "What happened?" Antonio asked when Ben returned. He watched Ben walk over to the big dude, say a few words, and leave. "I can't tell him I have a system and used a bad luck item from it." Ben knitted his brows for a few moments thinking of something to say. "I farted on him." Antonio gave an appreciative nod. "Ninja dusted them, not bad." Ben nodded in pride. "They're done and dusted." While they chatted, the guy left his group to answer a phone call. He walked to the venue entrance where it was quieter and picked up the phone. Ben glared at the guy with intensity. "You avoided the perfume once but you can't escape Daddy's dragon breath twice. Still, this consumable is only effective for 2 minutes. So what's going to happen now? Will someone spill a drink on him? Are the girls going to leave? Maybe he'll trip and fall." Boom, a small truck crashed through the wall. It smashed into the guy and sent him flying across the bar. He looked like a crash test dummy. Crash. The music stopped. A collective gasp ensued. "Is he dead?" Ben shouted. He couldn't believe what happened. "Oh my God, I summoned Truck.Cohen." Ben knew this could have negative implications. "I hope he gets reincarnated into a fantasy world with nothing but a return by death ability. That way he can suffer along with everyone else. Otherwise, things could get bad. If he reincarnates as a cultivator, he could transcend and come back for revenge. A new hero emerges." Chapter 48. Crime of Passion. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Ben was giving a police report. "Yeah, that guy was courting death. Who answers a phone in a place where a truck could drive through the wall at any moment. That I'm sure he's been building bad karma his whole life with all manner of evil acts. Threatening people, stealing their bathroom s.l.u.ts. That he's probably kicked a dog. Hey, why aren't you writing this down?" The policeman squinted at him. "I was asking you about the drunk driver." "Oh, him. I'm not sure. I guess he did it for a good cause. So that big dude. Is he going to live?" "Yeah, he'll be in the hospital a while, but looks like he'll live." "Wall took the brunt of it." Ben nodded. "No reincarnation then. Too bad for him. But Truck.Cohen also has off days. This must also be a part of his bad luck. Having to continue as a small time antagonist." Pink Floyd music played in the back of Ben's mind. All in all, you're just another face to be slapped. Out of the blue, Ben remembered something important. "Wait, that I almost forgot. I have to find out if he lost his cultivation. Maybe his chi center was broken." Ben glanced at the cop. "Was it mashed up?" "Huh. His meat and potatoes. Did they get turned into puree or what? Because he's got this beautiful girlfriend and it'd be a pity if she also became a victim of this tragedy. She should hear the news from me in case she needs a shoulder to cry on. It would be best if I could take a few photos." Ben was already lobbying for a role in Leah's biopic. The low-key but necessary stunt. C*ck. The officer didn't answer, only staring at Ben like he was a pervert. He tried hard to remember if he'd seen that face on the wanted list at the station, but came up with nothing. "All right, that's enough. I've got everything I need." He waved Ben off. How was it? Antonio asked Ben when he finished the police interview. He'd been waiting on the curb outside the bar. The state of the sausage is in doubt. Antonio nodded in understanding. As the two were talking, the huge guy was stretchered into an ambulance. Ben eyed him like an eagle, scrutinizing every detail. When the stretcher reached the ambulance, it jostled as the paramedics lifted it up, causing the man to show a miserable, pained expression. Ben narrowed his eyes. I know that face. That's the face of the D** class. Welcome to the wonderful world of wastes. An evil smile formed on Ben's face. You better hope your story has a weak to strong tag. Otherwise, don't waste my time. Hurry up and send out your ancestor so I can give him a smack. Soon, they loaded Leah's boyfriend into the ambulance and it took off. Ben turned to Antonio. He went full reek. Antonio raised his eyebrows and shrugged. Looks like the Gayjoys are still without an heir. With Reek gone, Ben started going over the incident in his head. So that was very bad luck. He shook his head. What bad luck, Musk? That was an execution, Musk. Now he understood why the system rated it as rare. Despite feeling the pain of losing such an expensive item, Ben was in fine spirits because he received another achievement. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Crime of passion, rare. Attempt to murder a man over a woman, distributing reward. PUA points plus 1000, Ben gulped when he read the description. If the policeman ever saw this. He sweated. If anyone tried to murder him, it was you. You need to change the text from very bad luck to eating a truck. In any case, it wasn't murder. At most, it would be manslaughter. And he didn't die. He'll continue living in the mortal realm as a walking cliché. As Ben stared at the system screen, he cursed the injustice. Don't make me out as the villain. If Ben knew that truck would be the result, he would have never used the perfume on that guy. Ben wasn't a madman. He would have used it on someone he really disliked. After such an unexpected event, Ben couldn't avoid considering an insane possibility. I have a system and even summon truck. Cohen. His eyes narrowed. Is it possible that I'm an MC? He gulped. But if that was true. Why aren't beauties and money falling into my lap? I don't know, but just in case, I'll keep my eyes open. Hey, check it out. Antonio tapped Ben and pointed at something. When Ben saw it, he gasped. Those three drunk beauties from before were still here, outside the bar. After the truck's grand entrance, things became chaotic, with management and people shuffling all over the place. Ben and Antonio lost sight of the drunk women and the police arrived only a minute later. Ben's eyes shined. The wolf pack left their meal uneaten. He and Antonio exchanged glances. They had the same idea. Scavenge. Cindy, it'll be okay, hun. One girl vomited on the sidewalk under a tree. The other two were holding her hair and helping her. All of a sudden, a voice emerged near them. Hey babe, should we resume this Romeo and Juliet story? Ben addressed the blonde who offered him the bathroom romance. She squinted at Ben, as if trying to recall who he was, then frowned. F***ck off, creep. Ben's jaw dropped. Wasn't this change too sudden? Then he looked at her status screen. Target's current attraction level. Disinclined, target's current comfort level. Stranger, no. Ben's face fell. We could have been so happy together. The drunk status had worn off. It was a Shakespearean tragedy. He returned to Antonio with hobbled steps. Antonio, do you think I'll ever feel that way about a woman again? What way? The way you feel when a woman asks you do her in a toilet. Antonio sighed. He patted Ben's back and showed a hopeful smile. Yeah bud. It's gonna hurt a while, but after the pain, you'll find the right one. Your destined bathroom Betty. Yeah, you're right. Ben knew Antonio was correct. It was basic toilet theory. The first step to recovery was acceptance, so he focused on the future. What happened anyway? Antonio asked. They weren't drunk anymore. Antonio shook his head and looked up at the sky. The brightest stars burn out the fastest, sometimes you blink, and the moment is gone. Yeah. Ben looked at the time. If you're done with the emoetry. Let's go. I need to sell some baby batter before it expires. Chapter 49. First proper date. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 5 days to live. Ben was gazing down at the One Ring. Well, the One Ring he now owned. It was matte black metallic. He spent 1,000 points on a mid-level mystery box to get it. Black tungsten ring, item, uncommon, X1. Increases wearer's manliness by 1 up to a maximum of 6, uncommon. It wasn't a very good tier for a drop, but this was the first item that improved his stats, which made him hopeful for stronger ones. As he tried it on, he discovered that besides for the stat boost, it possessed another magical property. On any finger he wore it, it would adjust its size. After wearing it on a few different fingers, he settled on his left middle finger. With the stat boost, Ben's manliness became 4. He tried to feel how he differed with the ring on and off. With the boost it was hard to pinpoint, but it was as if there was a stronger urge to be assertive or aggressive, a need to take control of his environment. Ben felt less risk-averse and more courageous. There was even a higher sex drive. I'll take it. Every extra stat was helpful. With that out of the way, he prepared for today's main event. Knock knock. Ben knocked on Miyuki's door while exhaling, trying to relieve his anxiety. It was his big day, their date. Since they lived on the same floor, he set it up so he would pick her up in her room and they'd leave together. She saw it as gentleman-like. He saw it as minimizing flaking. 1 minute. Miyuki yelled from inside. She's getting ready. That's fine. It'll give me a minute to prepare. Except Miyuki wasn't getting ready. She was standing at the door, watching Ben through the peephole. Ninjas originated in Japan for a reason. There he was, the man who she would date tonight. The man who charmed her and piqued her curiosity. The man who now held his arm around the shoulders of a ghost while pretending to tell a funny joke. The teenager who breathed into his hand, smelled it, coughed, and wafted the air away from him. The boy who closed his eyes and held his fingers in a V in front of his mouth. The F** bag who licked those fingers making alphabet shapes with his tongue. I fear I've made a grave mistake. Miyuki stood with her back facing the door. She didn't need to see anymore. Should I cancel? She looked back through the peephole as she considered her options. This time, Ben was standing there like a gentleman, waiting for her. Her face became more gentle. No. I have not yet dated Americans. This may be a cultural difference. I should be more open-minded. Besides, I gave my word of honor. Ben stood still. Yet, below the visual range of the peephole, his hand was shifting his pork sword around, trying to position it for maximum visual coverage. He understood the importance of pork marketing. Success in any industry is 1% talent, 99% marketing. Creak. The door opened at last. Miyuki appeared in a conservative long black dress, wearing light make-up, beautiful and traditional as always. She showed a pleasant smile. Hello, Benjamin-san. Ben held himself back from telling her, you're looking kawaii as F***ck. Instead, he returned the smile. Hey, Miyuki. Shall we go? She nodded. Sure. Where to? Ben was aware she knew his age and wouldn't like him drinking, so he didn't dare take her to a bar. There is a nice tea house nearby, or we can go to my dorm room where there's Lipton's, tea house. Ben shrugged, then led her outside as the two chatted. One thing bothered Ben since he saw Miyuki. Target's current attraction level. Curious, when they last met, her attraction level was at attracted. Now, in a mere few days, it dropped 2 levels. I remember Beluga mentioned that attraction and comfort decay over time, especially if they're raised with seduction skills. Attraction drops off particularly quickly, which is also the downside of it being easier to increase than comfort. He frowned. So it looks like to a degree, I'll have to rebuild them every time I meet the same girl. BVEC Ben felt like his VIP level was reduced due to inactivity. But he shook it off. It made things more challenging, but it was only one more thing he needed to deal with. In reality, Ben was only half right. Miyuki's attraction dropped 1 level from time decay and another from the earlier peep show. They walked and talked on the way to the tea house. Ben knew he needed to raise attraction before working on comfort. Jokes. Target's current attraction level. Interested, +1, teasing. Target's current attraction level. Attracted, +1, an accidental insult. Target's current attraction level. Interested, 0.1, recovering with more jokes. Target's current attraction level. Attracted, +1, soon they were sitting down at a table in the Western-style tea house. They both drank tea while talking more about each other. Miyuki told Ben about her family and background. She was studying for her master's in communicative sciences, only having moved to New York from Japan last semester. As a studious person who didn't go out much, she lacked friends here. Ben found her to be sweet, shy, and classically feminine, rare traits in modern Western society, which valued the blurring of gender roles and feminism, which ironically made the women more masculine. Ben also shared his strong points. I beat all the Dark Souls games. Target's current attraction level. Interested, 0.1, so she's not into it. That's alright. I've heard opposites attract. He went back to his usual tactics, working on developing trust with Miyuki. An hour later, he'd made progress. Target's current attraction level. Attracted, +1, Target's current comfort level. Acquaintance, +1, they left the tea house and walked through Washington Square Park, where many NYU faculty and students frequented. What kind of men do you like? Ben asked. Miyuki thought about it as she looked at the sky. Kind. Filial. Knows how to treat a woman. Ben was nodding. She continued, honest. Hard. Working. Pulls my hair. Ben was nodding. Ben stopped nodding. What did she just say? Miyuki kept going, likes animals. Respectful. Chokes me. Chapter 50. Neighborly love. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Have you ever pet a bunny rabbit that turned out to be a great white shark? As Ben walked by the park's fountain with Miyuki, listening to the water splash, he had some doubts about what he just heard. Was it a language issue? Or a joke? A Freudian slip? He wanted to know, but Miyuki never brought something like that up again. It left him wondering if he misheard. Not knowing how to bring it up himself, he continued with his own conversation topics. When was your last boyfriend? Miyuki looked at him. In Tokyo last year. Beluga told Ben that after attraction was high enough and simple comfort topics such as hobbies and personal history were discussed, he needed to go direct. That meant speaking about romantic history and showing his interest through body language. If he didn't, Miyuki would assume he either wasn't attracted to her or he wasn't masculine and assertive enough for her, also known as a beta B*TCH boy. Then the result would be a platonic relationship, otherwise known as blue heart emojis to color match the UNSE.XCDD*CK nuts. Ben followed up, how long were you together? As she responded, Ben moved closer to her. Now, when they walked, their arms would touch sometimes. On occasion, he would indicate for her to change directions by putting his hand at the small of her back and leading her. Comfort involved not only speech but also becoming closer through touch. So during the date, Ben did his best to make physical contact with her to bring them closer together. This was a skill called kino, which referred to physical touch between a couple. Beluga taught him about it and how important it was in building comfort. After almost slipping by directing her to make 4 lefts that he got the hang of it. An hour later. Target's current comfort level. Familiar, +1, congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Cat, raven, or snake, common. Make yourself familiar to one woman, distributing reward. PUA points +100, yes. Ben fist pumped in his mind. They were roaming around the park when he noticed Miyuki had checked the time on her phone twice within a few minutes. He picked up the hint that she wanted to return. Instead of letting her be the one to leave, he took control of the situation as Antonio told him to. I have plans later. Let's head back. Miyuki's eyes widened a bit. He wants to go somewhere else instead of being with me. Logic told her that should have offended or annoyed her, but in reality, she became more interested. They walked back to Halden dormitory. Now was the part where Ben needed to get her alone in a private place. He heard one of the hardest parts of a date was getting the woman to invite him over or come to his home, but in this case, they were neighbors. That made it much easier. He could just ask to borrow some sugar and pick up some neighborly love. They took an elevator to their floor. Ben's room was at the end of the hall, so they first passed by Miyuki's where she stopped at her door. His mind raced. I need to get her alone. Either in my place or hers would be better since Ferric could enter mine any time. Thank you for the date Benjamin. San. Can I come in? That I think it's not a good idea. Ben searched his brain for an excuse to convince her to allow him in. My room is unclean. Ferric turned it into a cam studio. He's an OnlyFans model. After some blinking, Miyuki shook her head. This is very popular among college girls now. That I hadn't heard boys also, but okay. It's very sad, but I can do nothing. Ben saw it didn't work. Maybe I should try honesty. Look Miyuki, the truth is that I think you're very interesting and Ferric turned the room into a meth lab after binging Breaking Bad. He couldn't go through with it. Honesty felt too dishonest to his L.U.S. Fool heart. Miyuki smiled. No, Benjamin. San. There are yokai in your room and I'm an exorcist. Miyuki only shook her head this time. Ben squinted. She's on airplane mode auto C.O.C.K. block. He had to think of something. His life was on the line. Okay. If she won't let me in, I'll get her to my room. I need to find some bait, something that would interest her. But do I even have anything? Ben's eyes shined. Do you like blue meth? Thank you for the date Benjamin. San. God damn it. Not even blue sky meth can tempt her. It's 99.1% pure. This isn't going how I expected. It was different in all those hentai and smut novels I read. Aren't women supposed to throw themselves at me for little to no reason? Why are things different in reality? Are these expectations the reason I've been AV.I.R.G.I.N for so long? No, I can't let it end here. Ben was unwilling. He sought to break through in the middle of a desperate battle. I don't believe in reality. Plot armor. I summon you. Help me substitute for years of practice with a shounen roar and Chuyuni eyes. Give me the strength to create plot holes.